Golden State Media Concepts social media podcast. Time to hashtag everything. We talk about all the fun, crazy stories on social media. From Instagram to Facebook, Twitter to Tumblr, or probably even Friendster. Join us each week as we explore the quirky side of social media. It's the Golden State Media Concepts social media podcast.
It's simple, such a sad song. The one that we rely on to get us.
Thank you for tuning in to the GSMC Social Media News Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. Hey there, I'm your host, Kayla Moeller. How is everybody doing? How was the weekend? Me, I am kind of sad because my cousin moved out. She moved down to Arizona. She actually is on her way there now. We've been moving her out. We had a nice little dinner send-off and everything. Yeah, she moved to a whole new state. That's crazy. Oh, and my other cousin, who lives in Alaska, she just had her first baby. And I'm so happy for her. I was a bridesmaid back in her wedding in September, and we grew up together. So it's weird knowing that she's someone's mother now. It's so weird. But everything went okay, and she's home with baby and her husband now. And her mom flew to Alaska a little while ago to help out, but she had to self-quarantine for a bit because, you know, you got to be really careful around a newborn baby. And it was tough because her mom wasn't allowed in the delivery room with her, only her husband, because of coronavirus stuff. So they were FaceTiming her mom the whole time, who had to help virtually, so that was kind of different. And that's the reality for most births right now. Some places aren't even allowing anyone in the hospital room, like not even the dad. So that's scary. Or I've read in some places that if they do let the dad in the room, then they have to wear complete full protective gear from head to toe. Okay, so speaking of coronavirus, let's talk about these numbers and some COVID updates. It's overwhelming. There are models and projections and graphs, and it seems like they all say different things. Well, the truth is, no one knows anything. We don't have experience with this, and everyone is struggling to keep their heads above water. We don't know what's going to happen. People can try to predict. I commend people for trying, but it's just, there's no accurate way to know what the outcome is going to be. And the hard numbers right now in America are that we have over 1.2 million cases. And most likely more than that, because that's just the number of people who have actually been tested and tested positive. We've had around 70,000 deaths and counting. And about 153,000 people have recovered and counting. But the thing about the numbers is they're so daunting because they keep climbing with each day. And we've started to open back up. And I feel as though we are all becoming lenient because we've decided this has inconvenienced us for too long. And myself included. I'm still very careful, perhaps more careful than I need to be, who knows. But I have found myself becoming more lenient and not as strict for no other reason than just that time has passed. And there's no reason I should be becoming less strict. The numbers are still climbing. So why am I like this? And this is the point I think everyone is at. We're starting to not take it as seriously, and that's dangerous. And I've seen people tweeting about this, saying the same thing, saying, why am I like this? And we can't let our guard down while the numbers are still climbing. It's just not responsible. Once we see a definite downward trajectory, then we can begin to ease up. But that's literally never going to happen unless people quit protesting and gathering by the masses, or until a vaccine comes, which seems like that's going to be a while. And people can do things safely, like go on a hike with a friend and wear masks, or sit in the yard and socialize in chairs 6 feet away. But what they shouldn't be doing is gathering by the hundreds, holding up signs that say, "My body, my choice," with a huge drawing of an X'd out mask. That's so ignorant. Maybe the most ignorant thing I've seen thus far. There are so many things wrong with that. And these protesters are all majority white. And they are mean and nasty and harassing the police and getting in their face. And it's embarrassing to watch when I see these videos. The hypocrisy is unreal. The privilege is unreal. If those were black people or any POC, then they would have brought out the riot police and hurled tear gas at everyone. But here these white people are screaming, swearing, hollering, physically touching these police officers. And that was it. No tear gas, nothing. And some of them have guns. I don't know what's going on, but getting wild and nasty isn't gonna solve anything. We're all going through the same thing. These protesters are not special or oppressed. The way they're acting is like this is year 3 of lockdown and the people just got told there was no virus to begin with or something. So they're going crazy. That's what they're acting like. It's been 2 months. And there are plenty of states with restaurants still open and shops still open. Our freedom is not being taken. And these people that are protesting, they want our freedom to be taken so bad just so they can come out guns a-blazing and try to play the part of some sort of patriotic hero. It's like a fantasy they have. And they definitely need to take a step back and calm down. That's fine if they want to protest. It's their right, but they need to adapt to what's going on right now and the situation at hand. It needs to be organized and they need to be smart about it. If they feel so inclined to hold a protest, then someone should go in advance and set up a bunch of markers on the ground to keep distance. Because from my understanding, most of these protesters do believe in the threat of the virus. They just believe the threat of the virus does not outweigh the threat of the economy. I do not agree with that. But I also try to be a reasonable person. So if they want to think that, then okay, that's not a great way to think. But they can't keep intentionally putting people at risk because of their own views, that are their poor views in their dangerous mass gatherings. They need to be reasonable too and compromise. Hold a protest, fine, but be smart about it. And sometimes I'll see people on Twitter bashing protesters for wearing a mask. Like, if you're wearing a mask, then why are you protesting? Take the mask off then. Which, yeah, they shouldn't be protesting in the first place, in my opinion, too. But that's the key word, opinion. That's just life in America. People are going to protest anything. So don't ridicule them for at least doing one thing right. I would much rather them be wearing masks because that's the safer outcome. And I don't think people should be condemning them for it, even though they look dumb to some people, but that's their prerogative. So if they're wearing a mask, then great. It's safer for everyone. Don't say anything, because then if you provoke them, they'll be like, fine, and take it off. At least they're doing something right. It's compromise. Just because you don't want everything to be locked down doesn't mean that you have the right to endanger everybody with a dangerous protest. If you're going to do it, then compromise and do it in a safe way that's safe for everyone, even the people who don't share the same beliefs and opinions as you. Okay, coming up next, let's talk about a visit from the Grim Reaper.
You really can't underestimate the importance of having the right creative work for your brand or your product. Whether it's a logo, a website, a book cover, or an ad campaign, you really need a quality design to make that big difference pop and deliver your overall engagement and success in a competitive market. That's where Design Crowd comes in. Design Crowd has over 750,000 designers from Sydney to San Francisco ready to help you with awesome creative ideas. They make crowdsourcing work for you. So if you need a logo or you're working on your creative branding, you can go to designcrowd.com and post a brief describing the design you need. And then within about 2 to 7 days, you'll receive up to over 100 different designs from designers around the world. Then you pick the best design and approve payment to the designer. So you're only paying for the design that you want. It takes a lot of the guesswork out of freelancing and out of crowdsourcing. And you don't have to be a huge company like Harvard Business School to use Design Crowd, although they have used it as well. You can start a project on Design Crowd for as little as $99. And if you go right now to designcrowd.com/health and wellness or enter the promo code health and wellness on their website, then our health and wellness listeners will receive up to $150 off of your design project. That's designcrowd.com/health and wellness or entering that promo code health and wellness.
Do you want to be healthier, yet you just don't know what to do? All these shows telling you this and that, but nothing seems to work. Well, listen close. Golden State Media Concepts has got something great for you. The Health and Wellness Podcast, dedicated to workout trends, healthy eating habits, diet, and everything about healthy living. Join us in our banters as we help you not just live life to the fullest, but live it to the healthiest.
Hey, I'm back. I was just talking about COVID numbers and protesters. In response to these numbers and protesters, the Grim Reaper paid a little visit to a beach in the Sunshine State. A Florida man dressed up as the Grim Reaper and paraded around a popular beach to give a stark reminder to beachgoers what they could be facing. Death. Glorious death. The guy's name is Daniel Ohlfelder, and he is a lawyer. And obviously, this took off on social media. The Grim Reaper literally walking around a Florida beach holding a scythe. An eerie and unusual sight, for sure. And that's exactly what his intentions were, to cause commotion and bring attention to himself. And he ended up on the news. He talked to CNN and multiple news outlets. His picture and message has been all over social media. And he's quoted saying, quote, "We aren't at the point right now where we have enough testing, enough data, enough preparation for what's going to be coming to our state from all over the world from this pandemic. I know how beautiful and attractive our beaches are, but if we don't take measures to control things, this virus is going to get really, really out of control." End quote. And I agree with him. If things are opening up, people will go to them. It doesn't mean they should, but they still will. And especially out-of-towners who don't have a beach near them. You know, they're bringing new germs, new everything with them. I think it's really important to stay within your own community right now. But overall, this Grim Reaper guy definitely was successful in what he was trying to do. You know, look at, I'm talking about it right here. That's exactly what he wanted. He wanted to get people talking. So I would say that he was successful in his plans. And while Florida has a figurative Grim Reaper roaming around, it appears that Russia has had a few visits with the real Grim Reaper himself. 3 doctors have allegedly fallen out of windows in the last few weeks. 2 are dead and 1 is hospitalized fighting for his life. It's a bit fishy, obviously, and social media has turned into a bunch of investigators, of course. And from what I've read, 1 doctor fell from the window during a meeting with health officials. The meeting was about turning the hospital into a coronavirus center. And this doctor opposed that because she didn't think that they were prepared enough to take on something like that, because she didn't think that they had enough protective equipment and all that kind of stuff. And now she's dead. And a second doctor fell from the window at the main training base for Russia's cosmonauts. And she was head of the emergency medical service and was supposedly being treated for coronavirus. And the hospital didn't say anything. They just said, oh, she died in a tragic accident, and that's it. They didn't go into any details. And she, too, fell out of a window. And then a third doctor had to fall out of a window after contracting the virus and speaking out in a video with a colleague, confessing that the hospital he works at is still forcing him to work while he tested positive for the virus. And after the video, I guess they were confronted and questioned by law enforcement for spreading false information, fake news. And then the guy came out and said, sorry, I shouldn't have said that. I was overwhelmed with emotion. We do have protective equipment. I didn't mean any of that. And then now all of a sudden he's fighting for his life after falling out of a window as well. And I feel like falling out of a hospital window is definitely not a common occurrence, especially not 3 times this close together. In a matter of 2 weeks, 3 people fell out of hospital windows, all who are doctors that were kind of trying to say something about what was going on. And it's not like they're drunk college kids partying and falling off a roof or whatever. They're professional adults. So there's some weird stuff going on for sure, but it is Russia, so we may not ever know the truth or what actually happened. Who knows, maybe one of them actually, like the first doctor, maybe it really was an accident. Maybe she did fall out of a window and then they're like, oh, that's good. So then they used that. I don't know. It's just, it's really sad. And I pulls through. He has suffered tremendous head injuries, is what I've read. And then, who knows, it seems like Russian law enforcement scared him into making that second video and retracting his claims. So if he survives, he might be too afraid to speak out or reveal anything anyways. I mean, what if they push him out of the window again? Or I don't know. Who knows? It's really unfortunate. These doctors, you know, they had their lives, their families, all their knowledge and studies. It's just gone. And while I'm on the topic of hospitals and death and illness, lovely, let's get an update on Kim Jong-un. So remember, there was speculation that he was dead or at least gravely ill. Well, apparently that is not the case, and he is alive and well. There was footage released of him touring a fertilizer factory. And he was like cutting ribbon with his sister nearby, greeting everyone, smiling the whole time. And people were saying that his walking was a bit stiff, but that's about it. He looked like he was in good health. And it was his first public appearance since April 11th. And people started spreading this idea of his death and or illness because he missed the celebration of his grandfather's birthday on April 15th, which is considered the biggest holiday that North Korea has. And he has never missed it before since he took office in 2011. So that's how the rumors started. But apparently he's okay. But I mean, he definitely could have been sick or had an operation. There's no way to know for sure since North Korea is so secretive. And some people are even going as far to say this could be older unreleased footage and that he's still sick or something and this is a ploy to buy them time. I'm not sure about all that though. I think it's just the social media conspiracy theorists having a moment. But this is not the first time Kim has been out of the public eye for a long period of time. In 2014, he was gone for 6 weeks, and then he came back with a cane, and then he drove around in an electric cart after allegedly having ankle surgery. So maybe his stiff walking could be from further complications from his ankle. Maybe he had another ankle surgery. I hurt my ankle cheerleading in 2013, and I definitely still have issues with it. So yeah, he definitely, if it was the ankle thing, then I guess that makes sense, and he was just kind of trying to stay off it and rest. But yeah, long story short, Kim Jong-un is not dead, so there will not be an aggressive power struggle, at least not right now. But that was kind of a wake-up call for everybody to think about, oh my gosh, if he goes under, who's going to take over? Is it his sister? That kind of forced everybody to think about those things. Okay, coming up after the break, I am going to talk about a trip to outer space.
You really can't underestimate the importance of having the right creative work for your brand or your product. Whether it's a logo, a website, a book cover, or an ad campaign, you really need a quality design to make that big difference pop and deliver your overall engagement and success in a competitive market. That's where Design Crowd comes in. Design Crowd has over 750,000 designers from Sydney to San Francisco, ready to help you with awesome creative ideas. They make crowdsourcing work for you. So if you need a logo or you're working on your creative branding, you can go to designcrowd.com and post a brief describing the design you need. And then within about 2 to 7 days, you'll receive up to over 100 different designs from designers around the world. Then you pick the best design and approve payment to the designer. So you're only paying for the design that you want. It takes a lot of the guesswork out of freelancing and out of crowdsourcing. And you don't have to be a huge company like Harvard Business School to use Design Crowd, although they have used it as well. You can start a project on Design Crowd for as little as $99. And if you go right now to designcrowd.com/health and wellness or enter the promo code health and wellness on their website, then our health and wellness listeners will receive up to $150 off of your design project. That's designcrowd.com/health and wellness or entering that promo code health and wellness.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
Hey there. I was just talking about that man who dressed up as the Grim Reaper and walked around a Florida beach to make a statement. Then I talked about the 3 Russian doctors who have fallen out of hospital windows in the last 2 weeks and the suspicions around that. And then I talked about Kim Jong-un and how he is actually not dead or gravely ill, and he is alive. Now, let's talk about a trip to space that's going to be launching from American soil. So that's going to be, it's the first time in 9 years that we're going to be launching to space from the United States. In 2011, NASA retired its space shuttle program. And since then, anytime a U.S. astronaut goes to space, they've been hitching a ride with Russia. Well, now, for the first time in 9 years, we're going to make a launch from here and bring back human spaceflight to the U.S. NASA partnered with SpaceX, and the launch will be taking place the end of the month, May 27th. It's going to be the first crewed mission for SpaceX since it was founded 18 years ago. And 2 astronauts, Doug Hurley and Bob Behnken, will be taking off from Kennedy Space Station in Florida, and they're going to travel all the way to the International Space Station, or ISS for short. And the ISS has had like a rotating crew of astronauts who come to it and kind of take care of it. This has been happening since 2000. But Russia and the US have been its primary operators and caretakers. However, Russia has been the only country since 2011 to transfer astronauts to and from the ISS. And this particular spacecraft that will be launching from Florida is called Crew Dragon. And both of the astronauts that are going to be flying on it, they are veterans and have flown to space before. The length of the mission is yet to be determined, but they could be up there for as long as 110 days. And they're going to accelerate up to 17,000 miles per hour. That is so fast. To put it into perspective, a commercial plane flies about an average of like 500 miles per hour. So 17,000 miles per hour is really something else. It's going to take about 24 hours for the spacecraft to reach the space station, and it's designed to dock itself. But upon arrival, the 2 astronauts will be closely monitoring, and they can take over the spacecraft if need be. There are currently 3 people already at the ISS as part of the Expedition 63 crew. It's 1 American and 2 Russians. So in all of space right now, there are 3 human beings up there. And these 2 Americans who are launching at the end of the month are going to be joining their crew. And they're going to perform tests on the Crew Dragon and replace aging batteries and do research and all of that. There's multiple goals for the mission, and they don't really know exactly what to focus on. They're not going to know until they get there. And then when the mission is done, Crew Dragon will undock from the ISS with the 2 astronauts and go back to Earth, and it's going to land in the ocean off the coast of Florida. And that's pretty freaking cool. And usually during takeoff, it's like a huge public spectacle. The public is invited to watch. People also line the beaches and watch it happen in real time, in real life. But with coronavirus going on, the public is not invited. And it's going to be closed off and private. And the only people who are going to be allowed to come are some approved reporters and news crew. Okay, so that launch is going to be put on by NASA and SpaceX, right? Well, what is SpaceX? It's a private American aerospace manufacturer and space transportation service. It was founded 18 years ago, like I said, by Elon Musk, also the founder of Tesla. And Elon Musk has gotten immense attention lately on social media due to his tweet, which is not uncommon for him, but this tweet in particular really made people angry. Elon Musk, the literal founder of Tesla, tweeted out, quote, Tesla stock prices are too high, IMO. End of tweet. IMO means in my opinion, if you didn't know. He literally tweeted that his own stocks are too high. And right before his tweet, Tesla stocks were doing great, wonderful. And the company reported a nice, strong quarter, which sent the shares even higher. And then right after the tweet, the shares dropped as much as 12%. And according to BBC News, that wiped off almost $14 billion off Tesla's value and took $3 billion straight out of Elon's pocket. Investors were heated on Twitter. They were like, why would you say that? Now I lost all this money. I can't believe you would do that. It's your own company. What's wrong with you? But guess what? I mean, stocks are already back up. So, I mean, it was just like a little dip. But not a little dip. It was a pretty big dip, and it's all pretty much his fault. It was a really strange thing for him to tweet, but he's a very strange guy. And he also went into a weird tangent, again on Twitter, saying he's gonna sell all of his belongings down to the point of not owning a house. And then he said, like, his girlfriend's mad at him. And I'm pretty sure they also just had a baby. I think I saw that too. And not to mention, in the beginning of the pandemic, he called it stupid. And then he decided to take it seriously and wanted to help by making ventilators. Now he's back to calling it stupid. So he seems quite volatile and a tad unstable, if you ask me. Everyone is like, the guy's a genius. Well, maybe, but also maybe not. Yeah, okay. So the next topic is Taylor Swift. She's in the social media spotlight right now for sending a box of love to one of her fans who is a nurse on the front lines right now. It's a Utah resident, and she traveled to New York City to help combat the virus as a nurse and be of service to these patients. And Taylor Swift thanked her by sending her a box full of merchandise and a handwritten letter, balloons, all this cool stuff for her birthday. The girl's name is Whitney Hilton, and she tweeted, I need to publicly thank Taylor Swift and Taylor Nation and Tree Pain for sending me a box full of merch and a personalized letter from Taylor herself for my 30th birthday / for going to NYC to help as a nurse. This was quite literally the best day of my life. And then she included 4 photos. And she also tweeted out a reaction video while opening up the box and called it an out-of-body experience and jokingly said that she needed to calm down. And she was very, very excited, screaming the whole thing. And in the handwritten letter from Taylor, it read, quote, I can't thank you enough for risking your life to help people and spread the message loudly that people need to hear about taking this seriously. Also, I saw the photo of you from my show. Thank you for coming. I would love to give you a hug next time and thank you in person. With love and admiration, Taylor. End of letter. So that was a nice little gesture, I thought. I'm not like a Swiftie. I think that's what they call her fans, a Swiftie. I'm not like a huge Taylor Swift fan, but she seems like a nice girl. Okay, up next, let's talk about murder hornets. Okay, I'm sorry, I'm so weird.
Want to find out what movies to go see? Then check out the GSMC Movie Podcast. It's your ticket to the latest movies, whether it's a new blockbuster event, romantic, comedy, or action flick. This show has got it all covered. They talk some what to go see now. Don't bother. What's hot on Netflix and everything in between. That's GSMCpodcast.com/movie-podcast. When it's all about the movies, it has to be this new show. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
Welcome back. Thanks for sticking around. I was just talking about a trip to space from Florida, which will be the first launch from U.S. soil in 9 years. NASA partnered with SpaceX to make it happen. And then I talked about SpaceX founder Elon Musk and his weird tweets lately. And then I talked about Taylor Swift giving back to a fan working as a nurse and volunteering her services in New York City. Now let's talk about these terrifying murder hornets that are showing up in North America. People on social media are freaking out and making memes like, well, at least it can't get any worse. And then they post a picture of a murder hornet with a little thought bubble saying, think again. And seriously, can this year get any crazier? Think about it. Kobe Bryant died. We almost got into World War III. The Pentagon confirmed UFOs. A pandemic is ravaging the world. The list goes on. And now one more thing to worry about are Asian giant hornets. They are the largest hornets in the world, and some have now been spotted in Washington state for the first time being in North America. We already are struggling with our bee population. There have been movements to hashtag save the bees or hashtag spare the bees, whatever, because the lifestyle of humans haven't been treating the bee population kindly. And if the bees go extinct, that can also lead to human extinction. We rely a lot on the bees, way more than we would think. So we have been making way in trying to bring awareness and save these bees. And now these hornets come along and could potentially ruin everything. They are so large and dangerous. They're literally nicknamed the murder hornet. And they can take out entire beehives. In Japan, they kill up to 50 people per year. And they can kill a healthy human with no allergies if they sting them a couple times. But the real issue is with the bees. Murder hornets literally decapitate them. Decapitate. The hornets are 2 inches in length and have a black and yellow striped abdomen and a large yellowish orange head with these big eyes. And their life cycle begins in April, but they are most dangerous from late summer to early fall. Washington State University researchers say they go after beehives, they intentionally attack them, decapitate the bees, and then eat the larvae. And they do it in teams, and just a few of them can destroy an entire hive in just like a few hours. And they don't really go for humans, thank goodness. And their stingers are much longer and more dangerous than a regular bee's, and it could pierce through a beekeeper suit. So they definitely are a threat if they kind of start to take over. And I was looking at pictures of them, and it looks like they have like pinchers, and that must be what they use to decapitate other bees. That's terrifying. And all the memes on Twitter are really funny. Most of them include pictures though, so it's kind of hard to describe, and it's not really the same if I'm trying to tell you on here. So if you're interested, then just go type in murder hornets, and I'm sure a bunch of memes will pop up, so check that out. And okay, now let's move into eels. Yes, the little squirmy, thin sea creature. This is the cutest thing ever. So an aquarium in Tokyo, Japan, has asked the public for help. The issue is their garden eels were super used to seeing people every day coming in and out. So they would, hang out and be comfortable and be up and moving. But now due to the pandemic, there aren't people coming to the aquarium, and the eels are becoming shy and afraid of people, which is not good because the caretakers need to be able to monitor them, make sure they're doing well for health and breeding purposes. But every time a human comes near them now, they all burrow into the sand and hide away out of sight. And they don't want them to do that. Also, because when things settle down and the visitors start returning, they want the eels to be comfortable with humans, so they'll stick around and be out for everybody to see like usual because they're a pretty popular spectacle. And keepers of the aquarium reached out on their social medias asking people to FaceTime in to the eel tank so they get used to people and they quit being so shy. And oh my gosh, it is so cute. They set up 5 tablets by the tank and they gave out 5 FaceTime codes for people to like put in their iPhones, like 5 FaceTime emails. So people could just like put it in their iPhone or their iPad and they can call in and have a little chat with the eels for 5 minutes. And they asked that people hang up after 5 minutes in anticipation of a lot of callers. So that way more people could have a chance. But by the time you're hearing this, it will be over in Japan because they're 16 hours ahead. Me from here, I turned my Wi-Fi on and I tried to FaceTime in like probably like 12 times because I wanted to see these eels so bad, but no one ever picked up because there's probably a lot of people trying to call. But I wanted to see the little eels so bad. And how cool would that be to be FaceTiming an eel from Japan? Like that's awesome. I couldn't even stand it. I love little sea creatures. I would have loved to have seen that. Their little heads peeking out. It was so cute. Okay, and then another thing is that there have been a lot of bioluminescent waters off the coast of SoCal, specifically San Diego, but some other places too. And if you don't know what that is, it's when the ocean water at night looks like a bright, light bluish color, almost like it's being lit up by LED lights. But it happens naturally, and you can see it when the water or waves move. And the phenomenon is due to algae blooms in the water. And during the day, it appears a bit red, but at nighttime, it glows so bright. And I've never seen it in person, but I'm so fascinated by it. And of course, right when it's happening in SoCal, I'm up in NorCal. But oh well, hopefully I will see it one day. It looks like it would be very beautiful. I am really interested in space and the ocean. Well, so this is what I think, people. The ocean, space, and the human brain are 3 things that we don't fully understand. We haven't explored all of space. We don't really know much about it in the grand scheme of things. We haven't explored the entire ocean, not even close. There's so many things down there that we're discovering daily and that we might not ever discover. And we don't even use all of our brain. Like we don't use it all, not even a little bit. So they're all interconnected in some way, I think. And they're just 3 things that we as humans can't comprehend. And I think that they're things that maybe we won't ever comprehend. Maybe we're never even meant to understand these 3 things fully. And I just think that they have to be connected somehow because they have a lot of weird similarities. And I also read like a conspiracy one time that the ocean, like its creatures, because there's really weird things down there, like octopus and just there's weird things in there, that UFOs bring little organisms, like they're on the unidentified flying object in space, and then it takes off, and then it gets into our atmosphere, and these little organisms that were on the outside of the craft fell off and fell into the ocean waters and then adapted to live under there. How weird is that? Because if you think about it, I mean, when you take off on a plane, like there could be like a bug or like a fly or something, but I mean, it would probably fall off or fly away. But I mean, we don't know how these organisms are up in space. So what if they held on and then when they get into our atmosphere, they fall off and fell into the ocean? Isn't that so weird to think about? Okay. Anyways, coming up after the break, I'm going to talk about Alex Jones.
Always on the go, but the day just won't be one without your Hollywood fix. Let Golden State Media Concepts Entertainment Podcast take care of that. Jordan and Keith is Entertainment Tonight meets Access Hollywood.
I'm Jordan. Guy laughing, that's Keith.
Yeah, I'm Keith.
An all-inclusive look of pop culture.
Hey, okay, so murder hornets, FaceTiming eels in Japan, and a glowing blue California coast. Now, let's talk about this absolute weirdo, Alex Jones. Alex Jones is a far right conspiracy theorist and propaganda promoter. He started the website InfoWars, if that puts anything into perspective. He and InfoWars are not even allowed to be on any social media platforms because they go against social media policies, and what he says and does is like abusive and legitimately promotes falsity and propaganda. Well, anyways, in a video clip of one of his recent broadcasts, he is talking about eating his neighbors. He's saying how he won't let his kids starve, so he'll eat his neighbors instead. Here's a direct quote of what he said. Quote, "I'll admit it. I will eat my neighbors. I'm just going to be honest. I'm literally looking at my neighbors and now going, am I ready to hang them up and gut them and skin them and chop them up? And you know what? I'm ready. I'll eat my neighbors. I'll eat your ass. I will." End quote. What is wrong with this guy? He gets real into it. He has this gross, raspy voice. The guy looks and sounds like someone you'd see when you enter the depths of hell. The video is circulating all around social media. People are freaking out. And of course, Twitter trolls are focusing on the part where he said he eats ass. So yeah, that's people's humor nowadays. And his ex-wife actually shared the clip to Twitter, and she said in the tweet, "This is my ex-husband, Alex Jones, graphically describing how he'll kill his neighbors to feed my kids. Homicidal, terrifying. I lost my kids for tweeting about injustice. This is unjust to my kids. This is a mom's worst nightmare. Court must act. Help, retweet." End of tweet. And it is really disturbing. In addition to the quote that I read, he talked about chopping his neighbors up like a filet mignon and grilling them and drinking their blood. He said if it's the last thing he does, he's going to get his hands around his neighbors' throats. That's not normal. That's not how the average brain works or says out loud or even thinks about. It's absolutely insane. And he is who got people on board with 9/11 being an inside job by George Bush. He says Sandy Hook was a hoax. He says Michelle Obama is a man, all that sort of stuff. And he does have a good amount of followers. Most of them follow him and listen to him out of satirical irony because the guy is so crazy. But there are definitely people who take his words seriously. And what he said was extremely dangerous because now it took this pandemic to a whole new level, a level of self-survival and do whatever you can to survive, even if it's violence. We're not there, nowhere near there. And he just instilled this fear and basically put these ideas into people's heads. And anyone who takes him seriously are people who are a little off. So they're not the people who should be hearing that stuff. And I don't mean to be some judgmental person, but it's just true. He's so extreme, he doesn't seem real. And he's invoking violence and promoting fear in people's heads, and that's just never a good thing, especially right now in the wake of uncertainty. And while I was watching the video, all I kept thinking about were his neighbors. Of course they're going to see it. How could they not? And then what? Like, do they move away? I mean, seriously, that is such a bizarre thing to say that it probably made them uneasy enough to not want to live there anymore. Do they confront him? Does he just say, "Oh, I was joking"? That's not really a joke ever in any context. It's just so weird. he needs like psychological help. Who thinks like that and then broadcasts it to the world? That was not a good thing to do ever, but especially in the face of what everybody's going through. It brought everything to a whole different level, especially to people who take his word seriously. And into the next crazy potential murderer, Carole Baskin from Netflix docuseries Tiger King. Now this one is funny. This isn't like Alex Jones. Two YouTubers from the UK tricked Carole Baskin into thinking she was being interviewed on The Tonight Show with Jimmy Fallon in order to get an interview with her. They contacted her several times by email for an interview, pretending to be people working for The Tonight Show, and the response was no, no, no. She didn't appear on the reunion episode on Netflix. She's avoided the press, avoided all interviews, has denounced Tiger King, hates everything about it, so she did not want to do an interview. But after many emails of saying no, the YouTubers took a different approach and reiterated that they wouldn't be talking about Netflix or Tiger King, and that the interview would strictly be about cats and cats only, and her passion for cats. And that caught Carole's attention, and she finally agreed to do the interview on The Tonight Show with Jimmy Fallon, which was actually an elaborate scheme put on by the YouTubers. They wrote up a contract, gave it to her husband, who's also a lawyer. They had a phone call with her on a burner phone and set up a time and a Zoom call for this interview to take place. During their preparation, they sifted through a whole bunch of Jimmy Fallon clips and downloaded audio to their tablets and made them into questions that would be relevant to Carole Baskin. She dialed into the Zoom call. They made some excuse about her not being able to see Jimmy, but he could see her, and that she would only be able to hear him and his questions. They made it sound real. The guy like had his earphones in and he was like speaking into it, like to an imaginary person, being like, "All right, Sharon, on visuals, go." Like there's no Sharon on visuals. And he counted in. He's like 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, cueing in and out. It was hilarious. They made it seem so real. And then they played these audio clips of Jimmy Fallon that they found on the internet, and they made it into questions, asking questions about cats and quarantine. And Carole was totally fooled. Poor Carole. And she thought she was actually talking to Jimmy Fallon. And she said how her daughter, Jamie, convinced her to go on the show. And she was, like, all right, I guess I will and all that. But in reality, she was talking to two young men who are YouTube pranksters. It was a lot of work for them. I can't believe they pulled it off like that, but it was worth it. I got a kick out of it. The whole time, like watching it, like I was like, I couldn't even believe that they got away with it. And you can find it on YouTube and watch it for yourself. It's about I think 12 minutes long. And they did a really good job, and it was short and sweet. And I think that's how they managed to pull it off, because they didn't try to make, it was just a really short interview. And the question now is if she's going to sue them for totally tricking her. But surely, I mean, if these guys are smart enough to pull this off, in that contract that they gave the husband, they probably put some protection in there between the lines that he wouldn't have caught. So maybe their contract is going to save them and they didn't violate any rules. But also, Carole and her husband are smart and sneaky. So if they're mad enough, I'm sure they can find a way to really get these young men in trouble. And I did feel a bit bad for her getting tricked like that. Netflix, I mean, yeah, they portrayed her in kind of a bad light, but they portrayed everybody in a bad light. And the whole entire country hates Carole Baskin, but they should also hate Joe Exotic. I mean, if she really did do her ex-husband off, then she deserves anything that comes her way. But who actually knows? The YouTube video has almost 3 million views and will probably be well past that once you're hearing this. So go look at it. It will be interesting to see what the result is after Carole Baskin sees this and realizes that she was duped. Okay. And up next, I'm going to talk about Ariana Grande and Justin Bieber.
The GSMC Life and Happiness podcast takes you on a journey of exploration. We'll discuss tried and true methods alongside the latest trends of how to best live your life to its fullest and happiest. From psychology to meditation, science to self-help books, the GSMC Life and Happiness podcast will help you to discover what makes you happy and how you can live life being the best you possible. Download the GSMC Life and Happiness podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type GSMC in the search bar.
Hello again. I just discussed Alex Jones and his very disturbing rant about eating his neighbors. And then I talked about the 2 YouTubers who pranked Carole Baskin into an interview by posing as being a part of the Tonight Show with Jimmy Fallon. And I wonder what Jimmy Fallon thinks about all of this. Like, they totally used his words and stuff. It's just, it's crazy. I can't believe that they did that. And to add on to the whole Tiger King thing, according to Variety, there's going to be a scripted series about Tiger King, and guess who's allegedly going to be playing Joe Exotic? Nicolas Cage. Nicolas Cage. What? And CBS is producing it, and it's going to be an 8-episode series. Cage will also be an executive producer for the show, and this will also be his first role on a regular TV show. He's only ever been in films, and maybe it should stay that way. I kind of feel like they're beating a dead horse with this one. It was already a podcast, a monthly article, then they made a docuseries. So what? It's a scripted series about a series that already happened? It sounds like it's going to be the exact same thing we just watched, except it's acting. I'm not jumping for joy over this one. It's going to ruin it. Just leave it how it is. There's no reason to remake what already happened this close together. If they want to revamp it in like 10 or 15 years, okay, but not this soon. Sheesh. And when this was announced, a Twitter user whose handle is @BrookeJarvis tweeted, "Unclear why everyone's so worried about the economy when we can just replace it with infinite Tiger King spinoffs until the end of time." That's hilarious. That's so true. And then she went on to say, "But who will play Nicolas Cage in the movie adaptation, of the TV adaptation, of the documentary adaptation, of the podcast adaptation, of the magazine adaptation, of the..." And then she stopped. But she's so right. It's too much at this point, and that's enough with the adaptations and enough with Tiger King. Okay, so now Justin Bieber and Ariana Grande. They are coming together and releasing a joint single for a good cause. All net proceeds from this song will be donated to First Responders Children's Foundation to fund scholarships for children of frontline workers, police, paramedics, firefighters, basically anyone who is on the front lines of this pandemic. The pair announced all of this on May 1st, song is called Stuck With You, and it's going to be released on May 8th. And I guess Stuck With You is a good name because right now everybody is stuck with someone during quarantine, whether it be your partner, family member, or your fridge. And also, guess what was supposed to happen but didn't? The Met Gala. So if you find yourself missing the Met Gala this year, then you can head to Twitter where there's a whole trend about reminiscing on past years in iconic outfits and moments. I looked through it. There is some good stuff. On my last podcast, I talked about Gigi Hadid's pregnancy announcement with soon-to-be dad Zayn Malik, a former One Direction member. So here's a little update. Gigi dated former Bachelorette star Tyler Cameron for like 2 months last fall. And fans started speculating and accusing, like, oh my gosh, it adds up. Tyler might be the dad. And then others were like, oh my gosh, Tyler is so heartbroken over this news. Oh my gosh, he's drowning in his sorrows, blah, blah, blah. First of all, they dated for not even 2 months, so please relax. And to shut down these rumors, Tyler addressed it all up front and said, no, he is most certainly not the father, and that he is excited and happy for her, and he thinks that she is going to be the most incredible mother. And he was like, oh my gosh, all of a sudden I'm reading about how sad I am, and I'm not sad. I'm happy for her, and this is going to be great, and blah, blah, blah. So I thought it was really good that he just confronted the situation head on instead of letting it get out of control and boil over. I have a lot of respect for Tyler Cameron. He came in the spotlight really quickly, handled it really well, has a really nice composure, and he just seems like an overall great guy. And okay, also, if you're bored and looking for something to watch, then you have something to look forward to. You still have to wait a whole month though, but Netflix is coming out with a comedy series called Space Force, and it's starring Steve Carell. And it's also got Lisa Kudrow from Friends and Ben Schwartz from Parks and Rec. It's going to be released on May 29th, which seems fitting because the NASA and SpaceX launch to the ISS that I was talking about earlier is going to happen just 2 days before on May 27th. I'm definitely looking forward to this one. I need a new comedy series in my life. People on Twitter were kind of like, okay, you've been announcing this since the Super Bowl last year. Like, come on, hurry up, get on with it. And they're like, okay, we're coming, but what is time? Like, they responded with like a space remark. It was funny. Okay, guys, that's all for tonight. Happy Cinco de Mayo. I hope you're drinking lots of tequila. Please support your local Mexican restaurant. This would be a really good opportunity for you to pick up some food from your local place. It's a great time for a taco, although I cannot think of any time when it is not a great time for a taco. Keep your hands washed and stay safe. Thank you for listening to the GSMC Social Media News Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. Once again, I'm your host, Kayla Moeller. And if you could do me a favor, subscribe to the show, write a review, that is really helpful. And don't forget to give us a follow on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Thanks, guys, and have a wonderful night.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Social Media Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.